Update: the company that sells ashwagandha root that Ryan Garcia claimed is behind his failed PED test outright denies their product contains any of this particular substance. Contrary to the recent confusion, our herbs, it doesn't contain whatever this is, ostarine. They've been a revered adaptogen for more than 2,000 years, traditionally used to support a healthy response to stress. Why did he say this? That was what I was trying to say. Is it real? Did he real life cheat? I find like when shit like this happens, bro, I don't think any of it's unintentional, because it's just like, this is your career. You're 30 fights damn near into your career. You know how this shit goes and how it works. You know, so it's difficult for me to believe that people make mistakes when you have an entire team that's dedicated to kind of like your nutrition, supplements, and lists of approved things that you can take into your body and not. It's really hard for me to look at this and be like, oh yeah, I made a mistake 30 fights into my career. That just really, it don't make sense. It's hard to also believe that he would do it intentionally, knowing the stakes and knowing his reputation, unless he really thought, if there is a possibility that he did it on purpose, that he wouldn't be found out. I think we need more info from an investigation. We do. But testing positive in any capacity is already a cause for concern. That's not like a mistake. I like that the narrative is being changed into like they're trying to take his win from him. But at the end of the day, that don't happen unless there was something in there. And I don't want to get it fucked up or twisted. People use gear all the time and manipulate what they actually take in and don't take in before the training camps all the time. It's just a boxer's performance isn't dependent upon his physique generally. Like, cosmetically speaking, he's not in the same position as like a bodybuilder, so they would have a harder time trying to beat the system when it comes to like steroid use than a boxer would, because you can at least retain whatever you gain from the gear that you were using longer as a boxer to some extent than you would be able to as a bodybuilder or a fitness instructor or a fitness model or something like that. So I don't doubt that there's tons of gear that gets used with boxers and fighters all the time behind the scenes when they're not testing.
All I know is that Bill Haney gonna be unbearable.
Yeah, that's gonna be a force to reckon with, a force to deal with. But I don't like the narrative. This is some brand new phenomenon and that nobody has ever used gear, and all the people that are reacting to it are like, oh my god, this is such a crazy take, or such a crazy thing I've seen, bro. A bunch of niggas are probably doing this exact shit when it's not training time. Roids also help with recovery, yeah, but they don't get out of your system that fast. And from what I understand, Ryan posted all these messages and these screenshots of negative tests days leading into the fight itself. Burner, appreciate you with the 14 months. It's hard for me to, like, what do I take out of this? Did you try to low dose something to such a degree that you thought it wouldn't show up on the last test? This is what he showed. All 4 tests conducted leading to the fight are negative. He joins the organization that's going to be doing the drug testing. He tested negative from late February all the way up until early April. Not that it matters too much, but 4-3 being negative, and then the next testing date would have been, I guess, a little bit before the fight. It's just like, why be clean that whole time and then boom, the fight night comes and then that's when you test positive? That's crazy. Yeah, I think there's really nothing to know on this, but I do think it's crazy that people are trying to act like this is like some conspiracy, like a publicity stunt to try to make Devin Haney not lose, when I think this stuff happens like way more often than people give it credit for. And to make it seem like it's Ryan specifically that they're trying to hold out, I don't know. You already came in overweight, so you looked a little shady based just off that. It's hard to really look at him without side-eyeing the situation. And I just know, like, the danger that you putting other people in if you did do this intentionally or on purpose. It's just kind of crazy.
Wins and losses is what makes us bosses.
This is the worst Chrome Heart shirt you could have ever gotten.
You know, we did everything right in training camp, no excuses. Did everything wrong and won, but like I said, no excuses. All glory be to Allah. But something crazy, though, is I was on the prayer mat today, and Allah was just telling me he was going to test positive for his drug test.
Oh, my God. This is shit that make me think niggas is not trolling, because in a situation like this, I would assume that you would drop the trolls and you would drop the super religious talk and be like, nah, nigga, you actually got some shit up in you. Like, maybe I need to take this serious, you know? Nigga said Allah told me. Like, what are you talking about, bro?
Everybody knows that I don't cheat.
The two in the background not adding any validity to the claim.
What can I say? You know, why didn't they come out?
Why are they there? Why do people do this and add random people to the... I don't get that.
Before,
like, what are you there to prove?
You know, the fight, if they found it before, why would they let me step into the ring as a cheater and then come out with the victory and then they post this, you know? Again...
Wait, what? Why would they what?
Why would they let me step into the ring as a cheater and then come out with the victory and then they post this, you know?
Because that's not how drug testing works. You don't get results instantaneously. What do you mean?
Again, these are people that are trying to attack me.
I would assume that you would know within how many fights that you've had, I would assume you would know you don't get the results instantly. And even though I don't think that the way that testing works is good for potential danger for people going into the boxing match, I think they would assume that, like, yo, you probably wouldn't be dumb enough to go in here on any type of gear knowing that you're on something and then test positive just for us to publicly announce that you were on something so we can revoke your win. He's saying, like, why would they do that? Like, and I can accept or kind of understand, like, all of these different places don't test the same way. Like, it's not like a MMA match or like a UFC type thing where it's like everybody has to do this particular thing no matter what. But within boxing, you go through so many different, like, drug test organizations, and they do and have their own methods in which they do things. So I see how somebody could be confused, but I don't really buy it because you've had enough fights. Like, an amateur getting confused, I could understand, but, like, you've been in this for a minute.
Whatever reason, but no weapon against me shall prosper. I never taken steroid. I don't even know where to get steroids.
But why would you pass every test except the one right before the fight? Is he stupid? I mean, that's not a bad strategy or a strategy that I don't think is reasonable for somebody who's trying to cheat the system, because maybe you thinking if I load like extra low dose some shit, it might not show up. Maybe you're thinking that. I don't know.
Steroid. I don't even know where to get steroids.
That's crazy, bro. That's insane, nigga. I could get steroids. I could get injectable, and I can get pill steroids from any. Nigga, what are you talking about? He acting like you could, like you need to go on a dark market to get some shit like that. That's super easy access, no matter where you are. This is gonna be bad because, like, imagine, like, the way Devin Haney's father has been in general is just crazy, but. Imagine, like, this all comes back and it's real, and, like, Ryan did this intentionally and he really wanted a performance enhancer. And for people who think it might have been like some bullshit ass, like, oh, it wasn't even that serious, he took something that wasn't even of a benefit like that. I don't know anything about these drugs to this extent and the effect that they can give you, even if it's just a small boost. If it has a boost to your abilities within power, reflexes, your ability to take a punch, your ability not to get stunned, anxiety levels being calmed down, all these things play a part in you fighting, especially in the way in which they were about to fight with as many stakes as there were. If that ends up being the case, like, how do you feel if you're Devin Haney? Like, that's crazy as fuck. I want to leave out the possibility that you wouldn't be this big of a scumbag and try to get away with that. It does give a benefit. It's just not as crazy legit steroids as a SARM, and he would have only had a weak dosage. If there's any level of enhancement, it's unfair. Regardless of how I feel about Devin Haney as a boxer, if there's any level of enhancement on Ryan's part, artificially speaking, it's unfair, and they need to stop it or revoke his win and give Devin his dub back. I think the weight thing is a lot more negotiable than the weight plus potential PEDs. Like, okay, you came in a couple pounds over, whatever, but then this as an allegation afterwards too, you look horrible right now, I'm gonna be honest. Devin's a sore loser. Fuck the Allah shit. His dada took it hard. I mean, I agree that he's probably not the best loser. He seemed to handle himself well after the loss and articulated himself well. He didn't seem to make too many excuses. He took it on the chin, literally and figuratively. But at the end of the day, if I don't have to take a loss, I don't have to take a loss. You imagine how big-brained of a play it would have been for him to act like he was crazy and adopt all these extremely conservative ideas, knowing that people are going to defend him if this comes out.
Warrants a rematch for Haney if this is the case.
Nah, he not. I wouldn't rematch him ever. Fuck a rematch. You don't need to be a boxer. If it comes out that this nigga was intentionally doing some shit like this, you should be done as a boxer. You should have your license and everything revoked. As a professional boxer, you're not coming back. I'm not fighting you at all. You think I'm going to trust a rematch with this nigga after he was doing some shit, doping and shit like that, potentially off our first match? Absolutely not. I want you out of this whole organization. But that's if it's true. He probably won't get a rematch with Devin, and his reputation will be soiled for a bit. But I think most people will end up forgetting, and it'll probably make him move in a way that's more careful. I don't imagine boxing as like an organization being so strict and harsh on this outside of just taking a win. I haven't seen any examples of it, of somebody getting a book thrown at them like really, really harshly for a failed test. Especially if you don't get reprimanded by any kind of organization, then his fans and the people that watch and like him are probably gonna forget over time. And also, like, the thing that makes it so much worse, like, you can't, it's so hard to be like, I made a mistake. I've said it again, but like, you're so deep in your career for this to be a mistake, especially if you have a team behind you and everything like that. I just feel like that's impossible.
Things that make sense to me. It should be noted that ostarine contamination in ordinary sports supplements is very, very common. In fact, it happens to UFC fighters, at least it has happened to UFC fighters all the time. Most recently, Daniel Rodriguez, a UFC welterweight, he was announced to have a positive test back in October, but they cut his punishment down to 3 months in December because they made an announcement then as well, and they noted that, listen, he was able to prove contamination wasn't intentional, so you get this sort of very minor suspension. Obviously, UFC does not use USADA anymore, but it just goes to illustrate how common it is. It just happened. And by the way, you can think of a million different fighters that this happened to. Kyler Phillips, Sean O'Malley, you know, the list goes on and on. Just type in UFC fighters and ostarine. You'll see all kinds of cases of a genuine verified contamination. So that thing does really happen. I feel like if it's that common, I feel like that's something that your team would be in the know of and tell you to stay away from if there is something that contains a potential contaminant. Like, hey, don't take this because it's going to alter, maybe not necessarily the performance, but maybe it's going to, you know, alter the results of the fight post win or loss, whatever the case might be. Why wouldn't anybody say anything about that? You might also be asking, if there's this many cases of it. It's a SARM, it's a selective androgen receptor modulator, and so it's a whole class of compounds, but the idea would be that it can certainly help with recovery, it can help with muscle growth. I mean, there's a lot of things that it can do, and this is pharmaceutical grade stuff. Now, that second thing he has allegedly popped for, which is awaiting further testing, this is basically a metabolite of nandrolone. Okay, so a nandrolone, again, not a chemist, not anything more than that, but this is a clear anabolic steroid, right? We're talking, again, pharmacy grade compounds, and this is something that any kind of performance athlete is obviously going to be looking into in all different kinds of walks of life. Just look up nandrolone and positive tests or anti-doping. You will see that it is a very common thing that athletes have tested positive for. I refuse to believe that you're this far in and nothing that you do is calculated to that degree, especially when he talks about him being crazy and him having all these social media antics, and he's clearly trolling or making jokes and whatnot and giving off the impression that he's not calculated in any capacity. It would just be the perfect thing to try to cover up. It would be the perfect thing to try to make people think that you're not thinking about the more important aspects of these things. Even your post-fight interview, you're like, give me a drink, saying shit that really doesn't make much sense to the average person in general. And then you come in with all these very specific stats and limitations and overweight areas that are okay technically, that you know are going to give you a passing grade but not necessarily interfere with the fight itself. You might have took something, or, you know what I'm saying, injected something. He says that there's a test that can show if it was administered from the outside or not, to show whether or not it was intentional. If you can do, like, I just think that this far into your career, you know, these are just things that are you have too much experience with and a team that has so much experience with that can advise you on what not to do to prevent these issues from happening. That just seems way too convenient that you would make that level of weight a weight that is far enough that they wouldn't consider it reasonable for them to tell you to drop weight, and then also not not enough of a jump in weight to call it off. That is just that's so specific. And you are a professional boxer, and this, I don't think, has ever happened in his career before, and you're coming off the back of a loss to Tank, knowing that people expect you to lose to Devin Haney. I don't know. What if it turns out he didn't do it? What if it turns out that Haney's camp made it look worse?
then we'd be having another discussion. But since he's the one in question right now, I don't think that these are horrible questions to ask, you know. And even if Devin Haney and his team are trying to make it look even worse, it doesn't change the fact that these things are the precursors and the prerequisites to this whole thing blowing up in the first place. Outside of Haney and his whole team making this whole shit potentially look away, these are the things that are objective facts on the outside looking in before we even get to what Bill and Devin Haney are doing. It looks bad enough by itself. I still think Haney would have got outboxed either, to be honest. You think he would have got outboxed either way? Haney got rocked early. I don't know what to attribute that to. I don't. You got to question the entirety of the performance of Garcia. We learned about the situation not too long ago, and it's unfortunate. Ryan cheated and disrespected both the fans and the sport of boxing by fighting dirty and breaking positive not once but twice. I've always been an advocate for clean fighting, and this is such an this is an example of such. Ryan owes the fans an apology, and by his recent tweet, he still thinks this is a joke. We put our lives on the line for the entertainment of the people. For a living, you don't play boxing. This puts the fight in a completely different light. It does. Despite the disadvantage, I still fought on my shield and got back up. I mean, barely. People die in this sport. This isn't a joking matter. 100%. 100%. He, I saw this nigga Devin almost land in a way that I felt like he could have broke his neck. Like, imagine coming back around and finding out like that was in part due to some enhancement because he purposefully, you know what I'm saying, used a PED. I don't look at what he's saying here as unwarranted. I mean, that's fair. I think he's solidifying it a little early because he already wants to retain his win, and I wouldn't let up either. I mean, if this was a potential thing, I would be 10 toes down. Like, yeah, the nigga cheated, even if I didn't fully know yet either. But the fact that it's out there, like, I don't know, it's just even if it weren't true, like the accusation within itself gonna make people look at you and be like, I don't know about dude.